She didn't smile. She didn't flirt. She didn't even notice him, but he couldn't stop watching her. She sat alone at the far end of the bookstore cafe, flipping slowly through a worn poetry book, her silver hair tucked neatly behind one ear. Her posture relaxed, her expression still, unapologetically still. There were younger women around, louder women, but she held the room. Without asking for it, she wasn't wearing anything flashy. Her makeup was soft, her clothes were simple, muted, and yet, somehow, she was the most unforgettable person in that entire place. It wasn't her looks. It wasn't her age. It was her presence, that calm, that groundedness, that quiet but undeniable energy that said, "I'm not here to perform. I'm here to be." And here's the part no one talks about. Men, especially after 50, they're not chasing youth anymore. They're not impressed by the loudest voice in the room. They're drawn to something far more rare, emotional, gravity. Carl Jung called it the power of presence, the invisible light some women carry without even knowing it. Not flashy, not loud, but unforgettable. Maybe you know a woman like that. Maybe it's your sister, your friend, your mother. Share this with her. She needs to hear it, because sometimes we don't recognize our own light until someone reflects it back to us. So what is it about certain women, especially mature women, that makes them quietly magnetic? What have they discovered that others spend their lives chasing? In this video, I'm going to share 6 deep habits that make a woman irresistible, not because of what she shows, but because of what she's lived. And if you've ever felt invisible, if you've ever felt like the world stopped seeing you, this might be the moment you finally see yourself again. Because no one tells you when it happens. There's no announcement. No turning point you can mark on a calendar. One day, people just stop looking up when you enter a room. The compliments fade. The mirrors grow quieter. You hear ma'am more than miss. And somewhere along the way, you begin to ask yourself, do I still have that spark? Do I still matter? Will anyone ever truly see me? Not for who I was, but for who I am now. But here's the truth. Some women, after 50, don't fade at all. They shine, not like fireworks, but like embers. Steady, warm, undeniable. They don't chase attention. They carry presence. And that presence, that quiet confidence, it's not something you're born with. It's something you build through loss, through love, through becoming. And that's where we begin, with a story about a woman named Linda, and the moment everything shifted. For her, not because someone finally saw her, but because she saw herself. Her name was Linda. She was 57 when her husband left. 27 years of marriage, gone in one quiet conversation. No shouting, no betrayal, just indifference, which, in some ways, hurt more. "You're still a good woman," he said, "but I don't feel it anymore." And with that he walked away. Linda didn't scream, she didn't beg. She just stood there, holding the back of a kitchen chair, wondering how someone could outgrow you like a pair of shoes, without ever telling you they were getting tight. For weeks, she went through the motions: work, groceries, feeding the cat. She'd scroll through old photos on her phone, zoom in on the smile she used to wear. Then one Tuesday, she walked past the community center and saw a sign, "Beginner's Painting Class. No experience required." Something about that line stopped her. No experience required. She hadn't painted in 30 years. She wasn't even sure why she signed up. Maybe she just wanted to hold a brush. Maybe she just wanted to feel something. On her second week in class, she met Daniel, late 50s, graying beard, gentle hands. He didn't flirt. He just watched her paint in silence, and after a while he leaned over and said, "There's something peaceful about you. You don't say much, but when you do, it lands." Linda didn't know what to say, not because she was embarrassed, but because That was the first time in years someone had seen her, not her pain, not her history, just her, and she realized in that moment, she didn't need to be younger. She didn't need to be someone new. She just needed to come home to herself, not to be noticed, not to win him back, but to remember who she was before the world made her forget. And that's when everything started to change, not overnight, not dramatically, but quietly. The way she walked, the way she breathed, the way she entered a room without apology. And that was the beginning of her magnetism. The first shift Linda made wasn't visible. It was internal. It was the way she walked into a room without scanning for approval, the way she let her shoulders drop, the way she allowed herself to just exist. She stopped rushing to fill awkward silences, stopped over-explaining, stopped performing. One day, while waiting in line at the grocery store, the cashier looked up and said, "You feel calm." That was the moment she knew something had changed. Linda wasn't trying to impress. She had simply stopped hiding, and Jung was right. What you resist persists. What you accept transforms. She stopped resisting her quiet nature. She accepted it, owned it, and slowly others started leaning in, not because she demanded attention, but because she didn't. There was a time when Linda checked her phone constantly, waiting for a reply, a text, a sign she mattered, but something happened when she began enjoying her own presence. She stopped orbiting around others. She returned to her own center. When Daniel didn't reach out for days, she didn't panic. She went hiking, ate lunch alone, felt the sun on her face, and didn't need to share it online. And then came the message. "You've been quiet. I miss your energy." That's the paradox. When you stop clinging, people start reaching. In Jungian psychology, this is the unraveling of projection. When you no longer place your emptiness in someone else's hands, you claim it, you hold it, and you become whole again. Linda stopped waiting, and in doing so, she became magnetic. It wasn't about style anymore, it was about alignment. Linda didn't dress to look younger, she dressed to feel honest. She chose fabrics that felt like home, colors that whispered confidence. She wore a perfume, not because someone might notice, but because she could smell it when she moved. Her daughter once said, "You look like you know something the rest of us don't." And maybe she did. Her appearance no longer screamed, "See me," it softly murmured, "I see myself." Jung believed that what we wear is part of our outer persona, but when it reflects the inner self, it becomes a symbol of wholeness. Linda's scarf, her red lipstick, her barefoot afternoons, they weren't fashion, they were truth. Linda once believed softness was weakness, so she built walls, took charge, handled everything, but with time she realized her real power wasn't in control. It was in surrender. She paused more, listened deeper, left space in conversations, space for breath, curiosity, and trust. Daniel once told her, "You make me feel safe, like I don't have to try so hard." That's feminine energy, not loud, not manipulative, but present. Jung called it the anima, the inner feminine that restores balance. And when a woman reconnects with it, she doesn't compete, she doesn't chase, she attracts with stillness. Linda didn't soften to please. She softened because she had nothing left to prove. In the past, Linda used to fill every silence. She'd talk too fast, overshare, try to be liked. But now, she spoke slowly. She waited before answering. And when she did speak, people leaned in. At a dinner party, a man whispered to her, "You make me feel like what I say matters." That's the power of presence, not in volume but in precision. Jung wrote about the container, the person who can hold tension without exploding. Linda became that container. She didn't perform. She connected, and in a world where everyone's screaming to be seen, Linda's quiet made her unforgettable. She booked a trip to Santa Fe alone, ate dinner with a glass of wine and no phone in hand, watched the desert light hit the canyon wall, and smiled, not for the camera, but for herself. Friend asked her, "Isn't it scary to do things alone?" She replied, "Not anymore. I like who I'm alone with. That's the moment individuation begins, when the self becomes whole, without needing rescue." Linda wasn't bitter. She was full. She wasn't waiting. She was living. And nothing is more attractive than a woman who chooses herself without apology. It happened on a Tuesday. Linda had just finished grocery shopping. Grapes, oat milk, and that brand of dark chocolate she used to share with her ex. She was sitting in her car, engine off, radio on low. A song came on, soft, familiar. One she hadn't heard in decades, and suddenly, without warning, her chest tightened, her hands trembled slightly. Tears welled up in her eyes, not from sadness, but from remembering. "I used to sing this in college, barefoot in my dorm, dancing, alone." And in that moment she whispered something under her breath. "I miss her. Not him, not them, her, the version of herself who laughed without filtering, who wore mismatched socks and didn't care, who painted at midnight and cried over poetry, and just like that, a quiet truth settled in her bones. I've spent so many years waiting for someone to choose me that I forgot how to choose myself." That was the shift, not dramatic, not cinematic, but real. She drove home, turned off her phone, lit a candle, and took out her old sketchbook. The lines were shaky, but they were hers. And that night, for the first time in years, she slept without checking. Her messages, "This isn't just Linda's story, it's yours too, isn't it? How long have you lived as a rough draft, waiting for someone else to finish the masterpiece, waiting for validation, waiting for permission, waiting for love, that you should have been giving yourself all along?" Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." And Linda, she stopped waiting to be discovered. She started looking inward, and what she saw there was more than enough. There's something Jung said that haunts me in the best way. You've never been invisible. You were just wrapped in someone else's projection. You weren't unseen. You were misseen, filtered through their needs, their fears, their expectations. You became the caretaker, the fixer, the dependable one, the one who always had it together, the one who never asked for more, and the world rewarded you for it. With silence, with being overlooked, with being the strong one who never needed anything back. But here's what Linda discovered, and what I hope you do too. You were never meant to be background. You were born to burn. You don't need the spotlight to shine. You are the light. Linda no longer walks into rooms wondering if she's too much or not enough. She walks in with a full heart and lets others adjust. She no longer seeks applause. She carries presence, and now she strolls through the same streets where she once felt invisible. People pass her, they don't stare, they don't stop. But then they turn, they look back. Not because she's loud, not because she's young, but because she radiates something rare, a woman who sees herself. Jung called this individuation, the process of becoming whole, unique, undivided. And Linda, she's not trying to prove anything anymore, she's just finally home. If something in this story stirred something in you, don't just feel it, let it move you. Take a breath. Place your hand gently on your chest and whisper, not to the world, but to yourself. This is the year I choose me. Now say it again, louder this time, because maybe for too long, you've been waiting for someone to choose you, but today, you choose you. And if you know a woman who's forgotten how radiant she is, share this video with her, tag her, text it, let her see what you now see in yourself. What was the moment you finally chose yourself, or are you still waiting? Tell your story in the comments below, not for attention, Not for applause, but because someone, right now, is reading in silence, wondering if she's the only one, and your words might be the exact light she needs. So write it, sign it with your strength. This is the year I choose myself. And I choose myself 2025. Let's find each other. Let's remember we're not alone. And then live like you mean it.